What's going on, folks, and welcome back to another one of my world building videos. Today we're going to be showcasing my take on one of the most classic fantasy creatures, trolls. And no, I'm not talking about the ones who inhabit the vast regions of the internet. So for my world of Kulgurath, there are many different types of trolls, each of which are simply named after the type of biomes in which they make their homes. And to start off here, you'll be seeing me working on some concept art for a snow troll. There are an endless amount of different designs and interpretations of snow trolls across so many IPs, and for my design I had to try to figure out a way to give them their own unique flair while still sticking true to what one might expect from this variation of troll. And that would be planting a big ol' schnoz for a nose and coating them with some fur. But I really wanted to incorporate some sort of animal influence into this design and really tie them more into the environment in which they live. Now they dwell high up in the mountains of the blistering cold Mammoth Peaks, as seen over here on the world map. Those of you who are longtime followers of mine already know, but this area is home to creatures like the Yeti, and I've drawn a lot of inspiration from the Himalayan region for it. So to kind of keep up with that theme in mind, I wanted to look for animals that inhabit that area of the world around the Tibetan Plateau. Insert the golden snub-nosed monkey. Absolutely love the colors of these little fellers. The vibrant gold fur as it shifts and turns into, like a fiery red-orange with a little icy blue face is a pretty sick combo. I feel there's something sort of ancient and fantastical about so many species of old world monkeys, so they're always a solid choice to incorporate into designs. But there's also some other monkeys blended here as well, such as the Galata, who's another favorite of mine, and the Proboscis monkey, who already looks like a troll in real life, so that just kind of worked perfectly here. And sticking to that Tibetan theme, I wanted to go with some monk vibes with the apparel and mala beads draped around the neck. Snow trolls are very isolated from the rest of the world within their temples up in the mountains, and trying to reach them would be an incredibly dangerous quest to pursue. In terms of their behavior, I thought it would be a cool dichotomy if their nature is that of extreme violence and rage, and because of this, they try to stay in a constant meditative state to achieve peace, warding off the beast within. And as a little visual cue to indicate when they're in this enraged state, their skin changes to a bright red. And here we have the finished concept art for a snow troll character, Kongro, the Fist of the Mountain. And here's another little sketch I did with him squaring off against a monstrous Yeti just for funsies. And now let's move on over to the next type of troll. Lurking deep within the foul, stagnant muck of the murkwater marshlands, the swamp troll is the most cunning of all troll species. Those of you who have grabbed a copy of the Kulgurath Bestiary book have already been introduced to these dudes, but for y'all newbies here, I drew inspiration from your classic depictions of fairy tale witches of Eastern European cultures as its base conception. In the majority of modern pop culture these days, classic fairy tales have kind of lost their original aura of being really dark and disturbing. I've always found the original folk stories to be far more interesting than the Disney-fied versions that have become more mainstream amongst the masses. But there are some top-level creators out there who do these sorts of stories justice. A director like Guillermo del Toro comes to mind. He's really great at nailing that, creepy yet fantastical balance of old folklore. And my swamp trolls here are not the type you would want to come across if you find yourself wandering alone in the marshlands. They have the ability to conjure up various forms of shadow magic, such as curses, and they have a taste for flesh of all kinds. A lost child in the woods would make a tasty morsel, especially if thrown into a piping hot cauldron of bubbling stew. Because of their vile nature, these trolls in particular are often the main antagonists of the bedtime stories that the peoples of Hyloria tell to their children. In terms of the design here, swamp trolls have these long, ragged-looking manes that drape over their upper bodies, hiding their faces in shadow. They aren't as physically powerful or impressive as other troll species, but because of their affinity with magic, they are every bit as capable. They also have these really almost deformed and hunched over bodies with a long neck. You know, one might say it's almost reminiscent of a PC gamer's posture. Similar skin as well with the grease and pimples. But actually, now that I think about it, I have seen another who has donned such immaculate posture recently on the world stage. Did the great Erling Haaland strut like this because he's such a fan of my work and grabbed a copy of my bestiary book and loves the swamp trolls? Maybe. Who knows? But I digress. This particular character here, I decided to name Baba Yum Yum, by the way, as a cheeky little nod to Baba Yaga, the infamous witch from Slavic folklore, and because she is a member of the secret soup cult who likes to use rare and exotic creatures as ingredients in her recipes. And here's some completed concept art for her. I'll probably go back and put some more thought into her staff in the future, but it'll do for now. And here's another piece of art for her as well that I did in the past. And with old Baba Yum Yum out the way, let's check out the final troll character in this video. Alright, now this guy is a well-known and established character in my videos here on the channel. The almighty mountain troll, Boris. Of all the different types of trolls, the mountain dwellers here are the largest and most physically powerful. They have really thick hides like that of a rhino or elephant, and jagged stones protrude from their skin, adding even more protection. And these stones kind of work like teeth do in development, where they have no rocky protrusions when babies, but as they age, these stones erupt through the skin more and more throughout their entire life cycle, with the eldest of the species being nearly completely covered in stone. In fact, this is how they die of old age. Their bodies literally just become part of the earth itself. I felt like that would be a cool little nod to that idea of trolls turning to stone when exposed to sunlight and folklore. Now these mountain trolls may be strong, but to balance that out, they are also the most dim-witted of all the troll species. They are very susceptible to manipulation, so if one of them was ready to attack you, you could probably just talk them out of it and convince them otherwise, or just occupy their brains with something else. They're big, ugly, lovable oafs in a way, you know? Now Boris here is a little bit more civilized than your average mountain troll, as he lives amongst the humans of Hyloria. And he happens to be the cook at the most famous inn throughout the kingdom, known as the Elden Worm's Hearth. He can often be heard grunting and cursing in the back kitchen as he's whipping up various soups and dishes while patrons dine and drink in a tavern. Before departing on perilous quests to hunt down monsters or villains, adventurers will feast at the tavern to gain some extra buffs for the long road ahead. And here's the concept art for old Boris. As I expand upon the world building more, I'll eventually do some art for like a fun little monster dish cookbook with different recipes and such. You know, all in due time though. You know, solo building an entire fantasy world from scratch takes years of work after all. And that'll do it for this episode of Character Designs and World Building. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you like the content and want to keep up to date with my world building here, as well as the other things I cover on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.